Hello everybody, and welcome back to MSFS Flight Plans. Nick here. I'm taking a little test flight over the Yellowstone area, which is where our next flight is going to be. I've already completed that flight plan, but I'm cruising up here because there's a big canyon that we're not going to be flying over for that trip on the north side of the park, and I'm wanting to see how it looks just in case we take a flight up there a little bit later. But the purpose of this video is because over the 2 years now almost that we've had this channel, I've had people asking me all the time how the heck I managed to put these things together with all this information so quickly. How do I pull it all off, fly a plane, navigate, a lot of times without autopilot now in 2024, check these notes, and get it all to come out like it does, which is not as great as I would love it to sound, but good enough for most people, I think, myself included, until I can just get better through reps alone. So I figured I'd give you guys a little peek into this world, and I've mentioned this a couple times, just kind of in passing on some of our other flights. And you'll have to forgive my voice. I'm afraid I'm on the verge of a flu, which may delay that Yellowstone flight if I lose my voice entirely. So I figured I would just post this real quick in case you don't hear from me for a week or so. But I always start off every night in between flights. I'll upload a new flight, post it, and then by that night, I'm already flying over spots that I want to check out. And the big thing for our channel, as you guys know, if you've been around for a while, is there's all kinds of interesting spots around the world that might have plenty of things to talk about, but I want to fly over spots that are both interesting and look really, really good in the sim. So right now, for example, with this spot, it would probably be disqualified because of all these really bad map seams out here, but there's other options for departures that we can take off from, maybe some different routes. So I would note that and maybe try approaching this from a different angle so we could avoid those. Just trying to get out here and see how the landscape looks. And there are so many really, really cool places in real life that we'll just never see on the channel because they don't look good in the sim. So there's enough spots that look great and are interesting enough to find all kinds of things to talk about. That's what I'm really looking for. And for a typical flight, I get lots of recommendations from you guys too, and I check out every single one of those when they come in. If it's one that we upload, of course, you'll get entered in our quarterly flight plan competition. But if I find one that I like, then I start looking at the Google Maps to see all the bookmarks that are down there for all the different types of things that we might be able to talk about in that area, and then I will reroute the flight plan all around the spots that we want to look at that are also interesting enough to talk about. And then once I've done that, I'll fly it a couple more times, make sure we can get a good look at everything as we're flying around, get all of our distances, altitudes, and all that kind of stuff right. And then I'll start playing around with the weather settings to see how good we can make it look, if there are any blemishes on the landscape, which we will do for this Yellowstone flight because we have some flat trees in some areas. Once I have all that stuff down, then I will start looking for different types of planes, see how long it's going to take to fly it, get all that dialed in. So on a typical flight, there might be up to 10, maybe as many as 15 or 20 complete or partial test flights that I've taken just to check out the area. Once I feel like all that stuff is good enough, which is usually a night or two worth of flying, if I found a spot, if I'm having trouble, it might be 3 nights, then I start the researching. And for a while, I was just using Wikipedia and YouTube, which is great. You can get a lot of information from videos. It's a little bit easier for me when I can find actually typed out words. It's easier for me to follow it and remember it. And recently I've started using ChatGPT, which is very useful, but unfortunately everything is really abbreviated in there, and sometimes I don't get as much detail as I'd like, so I can kind of start my search for the research with ChatGPT, and then I'll drill down to different spots. I'll search on Wikipedia for specific things that are mentioned in that, if that's what I'm going to use for it. And I've only done that for the last 3 or 4 flights. But now, at least for the last several flights, including this Yellowstone one, I'm uploading a lot of the YouTube videos that I watch because a lot of them give some really cool information and really cool stuff from the ground for a lot of the sites we're looking at. And then from there, I start typing out my notes. And for the first time ever, I'm going to show you guys what my notes look like. And I think this is the one thing that a lot of people want to see. So on my left-hand screen, I will have a little nav map pulled up. If I'm on autopilot like I am now, I don't need it to track our flights. But if we're flying helicopters or all the planes without autopilot, then of course I have to keep glancing over to my left. So as we're flying around, if you notice I'm looking out to the left a lot. I'm probably not actually looking out the window of the plane, but like right now I'm looking over at my left-hand screen. The idea is that you guys wouldn't notice that. It just looks like I'm looking at the left-hand side of the plane, but I'm looking at my left-hand screen right now. So I'll have a little nav map running on a portion of that, and on the other portion next to that, I have my notes, and here's what they look like. This is for our Yellowstone flight, which I just wrapped up. I might have to blow this up a little bit. So I just use Microsoft Notes for all this stuff, and let me just show you how much information I have on here. So this is a night's worth of research. I got the whole flight done in a night, and it's a 61-mile flight. I typed out every bit of this. There was no cutting and pasting going on with any of this stuff. And I type it out just as if I would want to say it if I was reading it on a teleprompter, which of course I can't do because I'm flying a plane at the same time, looking out the window, trying to spot our landmarks. So fortunately, because I've been doing this for so long now, I mean, this is the 202nd flight that we're going to be taking. I've gotten to the point where if you just read through this, if you can read quickly, you can see that this is written out just as if someone was speaking it, like I was reading it narration word for word. And I've gotten to the point now, since I had just typed it out, usually within 24 hours of me taking the flight, I can just skim the first sentence and I know roughly what the rest of the paragraph is going to say. Since I'm the one that typed it out. Read the first sentence, I know what the paragraph's going to say. And then the upcoming bookmarks, I've got highlighted kind of like this. And through each of the spots, bookmark information. And that's how I kind of shoot through them. Obviously, it's not always tracking that directly, but I find that if I just type it out, it kind of commits it to memory in my brain. And I have what some people might call like a semi-photographic memory, so I can see something and then remember like in my head, like I can almost read the words in my head if I just see the first sentence of it. So that's how I go through it. So that looks like a lot to a lot of people, which it is. And I'm sure most people couldn't do that for more than a couple flights once the novelty wore off. But as I've mentioned to you guys many, many times, this is all I think about. When I'm not flying, I think about where I want to fly. And then once I've got my flight plan down, I start thinking about the sights I want to see. And then I start thinking about things that the most number of people would find interesting. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to focus on. So I figure if I find it interesting, most other people would find it interesting as well. And then that's how I make the notes. And then from there, I get it recorded. Usually it'll take 2 or 3 recordings. Either I'll just wreck the plane, which happens quite a bit, or we'll fly over a spot that didn't look quite right, or I wasn't looking at it the way I'd like to look at it to get the best view of it, or I'll mispronounce something in the notes. I'll get something completely wrong in the notes. Sometimes I'll find something out a day later. I usually give it 24 hours to just stew before I post it, just to make sure I didn't really, really mess anything up, with the exception of that last flight out in Switzerland. And then I'll go through it, and then if the flight is good enough, I take it to the editing process, and if I can get it all edited, assuming there's no issues with the audio or how the flight comes out or anything like that, then, and only then, it finally makes the cut. And I do this over and over again, once, sometimes twice a week, which again, for a lot of people, probably think that's just an astounding feat, and I know that because you've told me that, but for me, it's all I want to do. So that's all I think about all day long, and I absolutely love it. And I know people keep saying, gosh, you deserve so many more views on this channel. Well, one, I would love to have many more views on this channel, but that's fine. You guys know I never promote the channel. I don't ever ask for subscriptions or likes or any of that kind of stuff. I would just be doing this one way or another. So that's the behind the scenes look, guys. And I'm glad to see this train's looking a little bit better out here. There's a huge canyon out here somewhere out by Mount Washburn, and that's what I really want to see. Because I was thinking about taking a bush flight, because we haven't really done one of those yet in 2024. That's what I'm kind of looking for, but we're not over it yet. I think it's coming up here in front of us. So I'm going to take another 30 minutes or so to check that out, and then tomorrow I will probably be recording, assuming I can speak, our Yellowstone flight, which is going to be really, really cool, and I think we're going to take the H-222 in that flight. We haven't taken that up yet. So I look forward to seeing you guys there. Now you know how the sausage is made behind the scenes. Hope you found it interesting. Later.